Now you get through life and there are going to be some people who love you, people who care about you very much, who in a moment of stress that you are having in a situation where you're going to have to perform, they're going to tell you, honey, sweetie, just be yourself. oh man. Okay. Being yourself, right? Okay, let me just make it really clear, my thoughts. To tell somebody to be themselves is the dumbest piece of advice ever given. It is the dumbest piece of advice ever given in the history of giving advice. And I would venture to argue that it is the dumbest piece of advice ever given in the history of saying dumb things, okay? Never be yourself, ever. Never be yourself. Why am I saying this? It's very simple. You see, first of all, there is the obvious problem of how on earth is it possible for you to be yourself when you are so many different people? Think about it. And think about it in a non-autistic way. I'm not saying that people are schizophrenic or that you are schizophrenic and that you have multiple voices in your head. No. I'm saying that we are all radically different people in different circumstances. For example, obviously, the way you act with your parents, for example, is that the same way that you act with your girlfriend? The way you act with your teachers or your boss, is that the same way that you act with the garbage man or perhaps your underling or, you act in different ways with different people. You act in different ways. You are a different person under different circumstances. So when somebody says, just be yourself, well, it begs the question, which version are we talking about? You see what I'm saying? So on the one hand, it's impossible to simply be yourself because there are too many versions of yourself. And we are all different people in different circumstances. There's no such person who's the same in every circumstance. In point of fact, I would argue that such a person, they will probably die very quickly if they do not adapt to the situation and the circumstance. We all do it to a greater or lesser extent. Some of us change radically from one situation to the next. Some of us change very little from one situation to the next. It doesn't matter. We all change. We are all different people. Okay? So, just being yourself is impossible. What you should be doing is being the best version of yourself for that particular situation. Okay? For example, suppose there is a fire going on. There's a fire in your building, okay? And you're the first one who finds out that there's a fire going on in your building. And so what do? You go around the floor of where you're working, right? And you start barking orders. You say, people, you have to leave. There's a fire going on. You argue and bark and say this, that, the other, and you're very decisive and you're very in control because you're trying to evacuate all the people from the building, right? Very good. That's one version of yourself. You are acting in a certain way under a certain set of circumstances, right? Now, suppose, like what happened to me the other day, suppose you're trying to get a 3-year-old to eat all of his peas. That happened to me. And of course, I didn't bark at this 3-year-old. Because if I barked orders and said, eat your peas, he would have burst out into tears because he's 3 years old, okay? In that particular circumstance, what was I doing? Please, 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 just one more pea, one more, please, please. Yay! Great, terrific. That's how you act with a 3-year-old, as opposed to how you would act when there's a fire going on. Am I being insincere in either situation? Of course not. Small-minded people, foolish people, people who aren't, they're not thinking, okay? They say, oh, you should be the same with everybody. That's stupid. You cannot be the same with everybody. And then they go on and say, well, if you're different people with different situations, then you're insincere. Ugh. Sincerity doesn't play a part in this situation. Sincerity, to be insincere. What, I'm being insincere when I bark orders to people to get them out of a building that's on fire? And when I'm talking to a 3-year-old child, I do not bark at him. I'm being insincere somehow? That's stupid, right? But, there are foolish people all over the world, okay? So, you have to be different people under different sets of circumstances. You have to be different people and act in different ways in order to get what you want. See, that's the whole point, okay? At the very beginning of this conversation, I was telling you how people tell you to just be yourself, act natural. Oscar Wilde very famously said that acting natural was just a pose, and he's dead right, okay? There are lots of people who act natural in any given circumstance. You think that that is actually how they behave? No. Look at the TV news reporter, the guy, the anchorman on your network news channel, right? He's dressed up in a nice blazer, right, all made up, nice hair, freshly shaved, and he's talking to you, and he's talking like he knows what he's talking about. He's talking about the economy, about China trade, and volcanoes in Guatemala, and whatever the fuck, right? He's acting very natural. You think that that just like spontaneously happened? He just showed up and he acts natural? No, it's a fucking pose. We are all posing for one another. We are all faking it to one another. Understand that nobody is acting natural, or at least nobody rational is acting natural. You know who acts natural? You know who is just themselves, acting like themselves all the time? Spurgy autistic morons. That's who. Spurgy autistic morons who swallowed this incredibly stupid advice of just be yourself, and they show up at a given situation, whatsoever that situation may be, and they just fly by the seat of their pants. They show up at like a job interview, and they're dressed like I am now. They want to get a good job at like some corporation or whatever the fuck, right? And they show up in like jeans, sandals, and a ratty old t-shirt, right? And like, not looking their best, and they think that they're going to get it. What the fuck are they thinking, right? Right, but they decided that they were going to act natural. And what did it get them? Did it get them the job that they wanted? No. Did it get them, the possibility of something in the future? No. They wasted everybody's time and looked foolish. You have to give what people are expecting, okay? And that's the reality of living in a society, okay? And we all live in a society, whether we like it or not. We are all living in a society. We all have to brush up with one another, and we all have to adjust and give each other what they expect so that we have a smooth interaction with everybody. And at the same time, you have to present to the world, or let me phrase that, you have to present in any given situation the best version of yourself for that particular situation. You see? The building's on fire, you bark orders and act decisively. The kid won't eat his food, you have to cajole him and be patient. That's the best version of yourself for each of those situations. Now, insofar as a woman is concerned, right? You go out on a first date with her, you don't present her with your insecurities, you don't present her with, the emotional mess that you are inside, because she's not going to want to see that. She's going to want to see the best version of yourself. That's why you get dressed up nicely, you shave, you put on some nice cologne, nice haircut, and you go out and you take her to a nice place because you want to present to her the best version of yourself. Because that best version of yourself is you. It is you. And so when you get to meet somebody, when you are introduced into a situation, you always want to be presenting your best version for that particular situation. Over time, very naturally, people will start to realize how you're really like, but you're always trying to maintain that vision. You always want to be thinking, what is the best version of myself for this situation? And show that to people. Don't be yourself. Be the best version of yourself.